Captain Ethan Walker stood aboard the USS Phoenix, staring at the glowing stars outside the ship's viewing window. He had been chosen for this mission because of his calm demeanor and ability to think under pressure. Humanity was still new to the galactic community, and there were many questions about how humans fit into this vast universe. The alien races often saw humans as weak, unimportant, or even primitive. But Ethan was determined to change that view. The mission was simple: travel to the planet Volter, meet with the Zimmar, and discuss the possibility of future human alliances. The Zimmar were an ancient, powerful species known across the galaxy for their advanced technology and unmatched strength. They were not a race to be taken lightly. The Zimmar queen Alex was especially famous. She had been married to King Rygar for years, and their union had brought stability to the Zimmar Empire. Ethan had read reports about her. Queen Alex was strong-willed, intelligent, and known to be an extraordinary ruler. She had never shown interest in anyone outside her royal circle, and she held her marriage with King Rygar as the heart of the Zimmar's strength. Ethan never imagined that his encounter with her would turn his world upside down. The ship landed on Volter, with the hum of the engines fading into silence. The air was thick with tension as the crew prepared to meet the Zimmar. Ethan was among a small team of diplomats and officers who were tasked with representing humanity. As he walked down the long corridors of the Zimmar Palace, his heart raced. The palace was nothing like Earth's buildings, huge, sleek, and towering with glowing crystals embedded in the walls. It looked like something out of a dream. When they entered the grand hall, Ethan couldn't help but feel the weight of the room's power. The Zimmar gathered, a mix of royal advisors and military leaders, their eyes locked onto him as he approached the throne. And there she was, the Zimmar queen. Alex sat tall and regal, her golden armor gleaming like the sun, her presence overwhelming. Her eyes, a deep shade of amber, studied him with a piercing intensity that made him feel as though she was looking into his very soul. Ethan had read descriptions of her, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. She was breathtaking, not just in beauty, but in strength. Her posture, her confidence, it all told a story of a woman who ruled with power and grace. Ethan felt an immediate, unexplainable pull toward her, a force stronger than any he had ever experienced. "Welcome, human emissary," Queen Alex's voice was calm, yet it carried an undeniable authority. "I trust you've come with good intentions." Ethan's throat went dry. This was the moment. He had trained for years to meet leaders like her, but nothing could prepare him for standing before a queen whose presence filled the room. "We come in peace," Ethan replied, his voice steady, despite the chaos of emotions inside him. "Humanity seeks allies and understanding with the great Zimmar Empire." Her eyes narrowed as she studied him, not in a hostile way, but with curiosity. It felt as though she was measuring him, weighing every word, every gesture. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. And Ethan realized then that this was not just about diplomacy, it was about something far bigger. As the meeting continued, Ethan found himself listening intently, answering questions with clarity and honesty. Alex didn't speak often, but when she did, her words held weight. She was intelligent, sharp, and not easily fooled. The conversation was both formal and tense, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was happening. Connection between them, though unspoken, was undeniable. Later that evening, after the formal discussions were over, Alex invited Ethan to a smaller private gathering. It was a tradition for the leaders of Volter to share a moment of peace with their guests after an official meeting, but this invitation felt different. There was a sense of something more, something unspoken hanging in the air. Ethan walked through the palace gardens with the queen. The stars above them twinkled brightly, casting a gentle glow over the scene. The quiet night was a stark contrast to the bustling city around them, and for a moment Ethan allowed himself to relax. "You are unlike any human I have met before," Alex said, her voice soft but still commanding. "Your people are different from what I expected." Ethan looked at her, taken aback by the words. "In what way?" he asked. Alex paused, her eyes distant for a moment as if she were gathering her thoughts. There is strength in you, Captain Walker. But it is not the strength of armies or weapons. It is something more ... personal. Something I cannot explain. Ethan felt his heart skip a beat. This wasn't just a conversation about diplomacy anymore. She was speaking to him on a different level, something more intimate. But he couldn't understand why. Why was she looking at him like this? He must have great leaders, Alex continued, her gaze now fixed on him. But it is not the leaders I seek to understand. It is the person beneath the title, the heart of a soldier. Ethan, what makes you human? Ethan swallowed, unsure of how to answer such a question. It was one he had never been asked before. He had always been part of a larger system, a soldier in the Earth fleet. But now it felt like she was asking about him, the man behind the uniform. I don't know, Ethan said honestly. I guess it's our ability to keep going, no matter the odds. To find hope when there's none. To keep fighting. Alex nodded slowly, her golden eyes reflecting something he couldn't quite read. She studied him for a long moment, and in that silence something seemed to shift. It was subtle at first, like a whisper that no one else could hear. I believe. That is what sets your people apart, she said softly. That is why I invited you here tonight, to see if I could understand. Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. What was she trying to understand? Was it just the human spirit? Was it ... something more? As the night wore on, Ethan couldn't help but notice the tension between them growing. It wasn't just the conversation, it was something in the way she looked at him, in the way he felt around her. For the first time in his life, Ethan wasn't sure if he was just an ambassador or if he was something else entirely to this queen. The stars above them seemed to glow a little brighter. But the path ahead wasn't clear. What had started as a simple diplomatic mission had already begun to change in ways he hadn't expected. Something told him that this journey, his meeting with Alex, was only just beginning. The days that followed Ethan's first meeting with Queen Alex were filled with tension. Every moment felt like a game of cat and mouse. The formal discussions between humanity and the Zimar continued, but it was clear to Ethan that something deeper was growing between him and the Queen. It wasn't just the diplomacy anymore. It was something personal, something neither of them could ignore. Alex, the powerful and unyielding Queen, had always been certain of her position. She had married King Rhaegar out of duty to her people, and their union had been the cornerstone of the Zimar Empire's strength. They were a force to be reckoned with, and Alex had always believed in the importance of the throne. She loved her people and ruled with the iron hand expected of a monarch. But now, standing before a simple human, she felt a shift within herself that she had never anticipated. Her nights were filled with restless thoughts. She couldn't stop thinking about Ethan, about his strength, his resilience, and the way his eyes had met hers when he spoke. There was something about him that was unlike anything she had ever known. His humanity, his vulnerability, it was like nothing she had ever seen in a Zimar man. In the quiet moments, when she allowed herself to think freely, she felt a deep, unfamiliar longing. It was a pull she couldn't explain, connection that seemed to reach beyond anything logical. Alex spent hours in her private chambers, pacing the floor. She knew that what she was feeling was wrong. She had a duty to her people, to her kingdom, and most importantly, to her husband, King Rhaegar. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan's face. His steady gaze, his quiet strength had somehow found a place in her heart. One evening after the sun had set, Alex found herself walking alone through the royal gardens. The cool night air was a relief from the oppressive heat of the day, and she took a deep breath, trying to clear her mind. She needed to focus on the political matters at hand. The future of her people depended on the success of the alliance with humanity, and she couldn't afford to let personal feelings get in the way. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't escape the thoughts of Ethan. Her thoughts were interrupted when she heard footsteps approaching. She turned, and there he was, Stina. He was walking toward her, his face lit by the soft glow of the moon. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. It was as if the world around them had disappeared, leaving only the two of them. Ethan smiled gently when he saw her. "Your Majesty?" he said, his voice calm and respectful. Alex's heart fluttered in her chest, though she tried to hide it. She nodded and gestured for him to sit beside her. "I did not expect to see you tonight, Captain." "I could say the same," Ethan replied, taking a seat beside her. "The formal talks are over, and I wanted to thank you for your hospitality." Alex nodded, though her mind was elsewhere. She looked at Ethan, her eyes filled with a mixture of admiration and something deeper. "It is not often that I meet someone like you, Ethan. Your people are ... different." "I did not expect this," she said softly, her gaze lingering on him. Ethan looked at her, his heart pounding. "What do you mean, Your Majesty? You are not like the Zimar men," she said quietly. "You have strength, but it is a different kind of strength. It is the strength of the human spirit, of resilience in the face of everything that tries to break you. I have never met anyone like you," Ethan felt. A strange warmth fill him at her words. He had always thought of himself as just another soldier. But Alex's words made him feel something more, something powerful. But what did it mean? What was she really saying? "Your Majesty, I'm just a soldier," Ethan replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I don't know what you see in me, but I'm just trying to do my part for humanity, to make sure our people find a place in this galaxy." Alex looked down, as if considering his words. "You don't understand, do you?" she whispered. "I feel something I have never felt before, and I do not know how to explain it. You are not just a soldier to me. You are more." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. The words she spoke were dangerous. Alex was married to King Rhaegar. She was the queen of the Zamar. And yet, here she was, confiding in him, speaking of feelings she couldn't control. "I shouldn't be saying this," Alex continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am married to Rhaegar, and he is a king. I have always been loyal to him, but you have changed something in me, something that cannot be ignored." Ethan's mind raced. He had never intended for any of this to happen. He was here on a diplomatic mission, not to fall in love with the Queen of the Zimar, but in this moment he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward her. It was as if everything had fallen into place, and the universe had conspired to bring them together. "Don't know what to say," Ethan admitted. "I never expected to feel this way about anyone, let alone someone as powerful as you." Alex stood up, walking a few steps away. She placed her hands on the railing of the garden's stone wall, looking out over the vast landscape of Valter. "I cannot deny what is in my heart, but I also cannot ignore my duty. If I choose you, I risk everything: the throne, my people, my marriage. But the feeling is real, and it grows stronger each day. I do not know what to do." Ethan watched her, his heart torn. He knew that what she was asking, what she was feeling, was dangerous. It wasn't just her life at risk, it was the future of the entire Zimar Empire. He stood up and walked toward her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Whatever happens, Your Majesty, you have to follow your heart. You deserve to be happy, even if it means going against everything you know." Alex turned to face him, her eyes searching his face for answers. "And what of you, Ethan? What do you want?" Ethan hesitated. What did he want? He had come to this planet as a soldier, a diplomat, but now everything had changed. He wanted her, he had no doubt about that. Was it worth the price they would both have to pay? "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I'll stand by you, no matter what you decide." Alex's eyes softened, and for a moment the weight of her responsibilities seemed to disappear. But she knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The choice she had to make would shape the future of the Zamar and humanity. And deep down, she knew that everything was about to change. King Rhaegar, the mighty ruler of the Zimar, was not a man easily fooled. As the husband of Queen Alex, he had always been confident in his position. His empire was vast, his power unchallenged. He had made many enemies, but he had also forged alliances with the strongest species in the galaxy, including humans. He had always thought that the alliance with humanity would be just another political move, something to ensure peace and stability for his people. However, something had changed. Over the past few days, Rhaegar had watched the interactions between his queen and Captain Ethan Walker closely. The way Alex had looked at the human emissary was unmistakable. There was a softness in her eyes that he had never seen before. It was a look that only came when someone felt something deeper than just respect. and that thought filled Rhaegar with dread. He had known his wife for many years. They had been married out of duty, and in those years their bond had grown stronger. Rhaegar had always trusted Alex to lead their people with strength and wisdom. But now, he sensed a change in her, a change that he could not ignore. Rhaegar had always been a man of action, and he suspected something was wrong. He acted. He had arranged for a private meeting with his most trusted advisors, including his chief military strategist, Commander Korr, and Dot in the dimly lit war room. Rhaegar stood before a large holographic display showing the strategic layout of the Zimar Empire. Corran stood beside him, observing the map. But his attention was on the king's troubled face. "My king, you seem troubled," Corran said, his voice low. Rhaegar didn't look at him immediately. His gaze remained fixed on the map, as if the answers he sought might be hidden in the lines and borders of the galaxy. "It's Queen Alex," he said, finally turning to face his commander. "I believe she is. Distracted. Her mind is elsewhere." Corran raised an eyebrow. "Elsewhere? What do you mean?" "I mean that something has changed between her and Captain Ethan Walker," Rhaegar said, his voice thick with suspicion. "I have seen the way she looks at him. There is something between them." Corran's eyes narrowed. "Do you believe she is considering betraying you, my king?" Rhaegar sighed and ran a hand through his dark hair. "I don't know, but I cannot ignore the signs. The alliance with humanity was supposed to strengthen our empire, not cause divisions." Corran stepped closer. "I have observed their interactions as well. Alex is distant, even when she is near you. She does not share the same warmth she once did." Rhaegar's fists clenched. He had always relied on his queen, trusted her completely. But now doubts gnawed at him. He could feel the walls closing in. The Zimar Empire was at a delicate point, and any instability in their leadership could lead to chaos. "I will confront her," Rhaegar said firmly, his voice like steel. "I will find out what is truly going on between her and that human." The next day, after a tense breakfast meeting with the council, Rhaegar ordered Queen Alex to meet him privately in the royal chambers. The air between them felt colder than it had in years. As Alex entered, her steps were heavy with uncertainty. She could feel the weight of her husband's stare, and she knew that he knew something was wrong. "Sit down, Alex," Rhaegar said, his tone commanding. Alex took a seat across from him, her heart pounding. She had known this moment would come. She had been avoiding Rhaegar's questions for days, but now there was no escaping it. "Alex," Rhaegar began, his voice low, "I need to know what is going on between you and Captain Walker." Alex looked down, not wanting to meet his eyes. "There is nothing between us," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Rhaegar's eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me. I have seen the way you look at him, the way you speak to him. Know you, Alex. I know when something is troubling you." Alex sighed, her shoulders slumping. "Rhaegar." She paused, struggling to find the words. "I can't explain it, but there is something about him, something I cannot deny. He makes me feel things I have never felt before." Rhaegar stood up suddenly, his anger flaring. "Is this what you want? To leave me for a human soldier? For someone who is beneath you?" His voice was rising, but he tried to keep it steady. "We have ruled together for years. Our people look to us for strength, for unity. And you, I never wanted." "This, Rhaegar," Alex interrupted, standing as well. "I never wanted to feel this way, but I cannot help it. I cannot deny what I feel in my heart." Rhaegar was silent for a long moment, his fists clenched at his sides. He had never imagined that Alex would say something like this, he had thought. Their bond was unbreakable, that their duty to the Zimar Empire would always come first. But now it felt as though everything was slipping through his fingers. "This is madness," he muttered, shaking his head. "You are the queen. You cannot let your emotions control you. Our people depend on us." Alex stepped forward, her voice softer now. "I know my duty, Rhaegar, but I am also a person, not just a symbol, and I cannot ignore what I feel anymore." Rhaegar's eyes were filled with frustration and pain. He had always believed in the strength of their marriage, but now it seemed as though Alex had already made her decision. and it was not a decision he could control. "I cannot stop you from making your choice," Rygar said coldly. "But know this, if you choose him, you are no longer the queen. You will have to leave everything behind." Alex's heart ached. At his words, she had never wanted to come to this point. But she had already come too far. She had already made up her mind. The human soldier had captured her heart, and no matter the consequences, she knew she could not walk away from it. "I am sorry, Rygar," she said softly, her voice breaking, "but I cannot stay." With those words, the walls of the Zimar Empire began to crumble, and the future of an entire galaxy teetered on the brink of uncertainty. The days after Alex's confrontation with King Rhaegar were filled with uncertainty and tension. The Zimar court was on edge, whispers spreading like wildfire through the corridors of the palace. Many had noticed the change in Queen Alex. Her usual regal composure was gone, replaced by an air of sadness and distance. She no longer walked with the same confidence, and the weight of her decision hung heavy on her heart. Ethan, too, felt the strain. Though he had tried to focus on his mission and the talks between the Zimar and humanity, his thoughts often drifted to Alex. He had known from the beginning that his feelings for her were dangerous. He had never imagined that they could lead to such a complex and risky situation. But every time he saw her, his heart told him that he couldn't turn away. The night after Alex had left Rhaegar, Ethan found himself in the royal gardens again, walking beneath the starlit sky. The cool breeze was a welcome relief from the heat of the palace. He had come to clear his mind, but as he rounded a corner, he found her there standing alone, her back to him. Alex's golden armor shimmered in the dim light, her posture straight and proud, though her face carried the weight of her choices. When she heard him approach, she turned slowly, her amber eyes meeting his. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice like a whisper in the night. "I was hoping you would come." Ethan stepped closer, unsure of what to say. His heart raced as he took in her solemn expression. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly, his voice full of concern. Alex took a deep breath, her eyes filled with emotion. "No," she admitted, "I'm not. I've torn apart my life, Ethan. I've betrayed everything I've known for a feeling I don't fully understand, and I fear what will come of it." Ethan reached out, gently placing a hand on her arm. The connection between them felt strong, as if fate had brought them together for a reason. "Alex, I don't want you to feel guilty," he said, his voice firm. "You followed your heart. That's all anyone can do." She looked down, her gaze filled with confusion and uncertainty. "But what now? What happens to us? My people will never forgive me. Rhaegar will not forgive me. I fear I have put everything at risk for nothing." "You've made a choice," Ethan said. "And sometimes the hardest thing is to face the consequences. But you don't have to face them alone." Alex lifted her head, looking into his eyes, searching for the truth in his words. "Do you truly believe that? Do you believe that? We can be together, even if it means everything I've built will fall apart?" Ethan nodded, his expression unwavering. "Yes. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'm willing to stand by you, no matter what. You don't have to carry this burden alone." Alex's heart swelled with emotion. She had never felt so torn, so conflicted. Words gave her a sense of peace she hadn't felt in days. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel hope. Perhaps it was not too late for her to find happiness, to find something worth fighting for. She stepped closer to him, her breath shallow. "You're right," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been so afraid of losing everything that I've forgotten what it means to live, to feel love, to feel alive. I want that, Ethan. I want you." Ethan's heart skipped a beat at her words. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment when everything changed. He had never expected to find himself here, standing beside the queen of an entire empire. But here he was, willing to give up everything for her. He gently cupped her face in his hands, his thumb brushing against her cheek. "Then let's make it work," he said softly. "Together." Lex closed her eyes, allowing herself to savor the moment. For the first time in a long while, she felt free. The weight of her responsibilities, the pressure of her marriage, The expectations of her people, they all seemed to fade away in Ethan's presence. Here, in this quiet garden, she could be just Alex, the woman who had fallen in love with a human soldier, but their path would not be easy. Alex knew that. The consequences of her decision would be far-reaching. Her people would never understand. Her choice, Rygar would never forgive her. And yet, in her heart, she knew she had made the right decision. She had chosen love, and that was worth fighting for. "I'm ready," she said, her voice filled with determination. "I will fight for this, for us." Ethan smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Then we'll face whatever comes together. You don't have to do this alone." The days that followed were filled with preparations. Alex sent word to her advisors, informing them of her decision. She knew it would cause a stir, but she could not go back now. She had chosen Ethan, and she would face the consequences head-on. Her people would have to accept that their queen had fallen in love with a human. There would be no turning back. Rygar too received the news, and his anger knew no bounds. He had always believed that his queen was loyal to him, that she would never betray him, but now he faced the ultimate betrayal. His queen had chosen another, and his kingdom was on the verge of falling apart. He could not let this happen. The Empire depended on him, and if Alex was willing to abandon her duty, he would take matters into his own hands. Rygar summoned his most trusted generals, preparing for what he feared was the beginning of a civil war. He could not allow Alex's decision to go unchallenged. The future of the Zamar Empire was at stake. As the tension between the two sides grew, Alex and Ethan knew that their journey together was only just beginning. It would face challenges, enemies, and obstacles they had never imagined. They were ready. Together, they would change the future of the Zamar Empire and the fate of humanity. The tension in the Zima Empire had reached its breaking point. Queen Alex's decision to leave King Rhaegar had shaken the very foundations of their society. The royal court was divided, with some loyal to the queen, others still loyal to the king. Word spread quickly through the palace, and soon the entire empire was caught in the storm of uncertainty. Alex and Ethan had chosen to stand together, but the road ahead was filled with obstacles. There were whispers of rebellion in the air. Some of the Zimar generals, loyal to Rhaegar, began to question their queen's leadership. They saw Alex's actions as a threat to the stability of the empire, and they were determined to do whatever it took to protect the throne and the royal palace. Alex stood with her advisors, looking out over the city. The skies were painted in shades of orange and purple as the sun set, casting a warm glow over the land. But despite the beauty of the scene, Alex could not escape the heavy weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "What are we to do now?" Alex asked, turning to her most trusted advisor, General Varric. His stern expression mirrored the concern she felt deep inside. "We fight," Varric replied simply. "We must take control of the military forces before Rhaegar does. If we don't act now, we risk losing everything." Alex nodded, knowing he was right. She had always been a strong leader, but this was different. She was no longer just a queen. She was a woman who had chosen love over duty, and that choice had made her a target. "We will need every loyal soldier," Alex said, her voice filled with determination. "We will not let Rhaegar take this empire from us. People deserve better." Ethan, who had been standing quietly in the corner, stepped forward. His gaze met Alex's, his heart swelling with pride. "I'll stand by you, Alex. You've already made your decision. I'll help you fight for it." Alex's eyes softened as she looked at him. She knew the path ahead would be dangerous for both of them, but in that moment, she felt stronger than ever. With Ethan by her side, she could face whatever came next. Meanwhile, King Rhaegar was not idle. He'd spent days organizing his forces, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. His anger had burned hotter with each passing hour, but it was not just fury that drove him, it was fear. The fear that Alex, the woman he had ruled beside for so many years, had chosen to abandon him. Rhaegar knew that if he allowed Alex to succeed in this rebellion, it would be the end of his rule, and the end of everything he had fought for. The king's trusted generals stood around him in the war room. Rhaegar's face was grim as he looked at them. "Get me the elite troops," Rhaegar commanded, his voice cold and steady. "We will march on the palace tonight. The traitor queen will be dethroned." There was no hesitation in the general's eyes. They had been loyal to Rygar for years, and they would follow him into battle without question. The king's command was absolute, but not all of Rygar's soldiers were so easily swayed. Many, particularly those in the lower ranks, had begun to question the king's actions. They had seen the way Alex had fought for her people, the way she'd always put the needs of the Zimar first. They had seen the love and respect she had for her people and for Ethan. To them, Alex's decision to follow her heart seemed like a noble one. As Rygar's forces prepared to march, whispers of support for the queen spread through the ranks. Soldiers began to secretly meet, quietly pledging their loyalty to Alex, knowing that she was the future of the Zimar Empire. They knew the coming battle would not just be a fight for power, it would be a fight for the soul of their people. That night, as the moon rose high in the sky, the Zimar capital city was filled with tension. The palace, once a symbol of strength and unity, now stood as a battleground for the future of the empire. On one side, Rygar's soldiers prepared to storm the palace and take control. On the other, Alex and her loyalists gathered, ready to defend her reign. Alex stood at the palace gates, her heart pounding in her chest. The sounds of marching soldiers grew louder as Rygar's army approached. The time had come. There was no turning back now. She turned to her soldiers, her voice steady as she addressed them. "This is our moment. This is for our people, for our future. We stand together and we fight for what is right. We fight for love, for freedom, for the future of the Zimar." Her words were met with a roar of approval. The soldiers stood tall, ready to fight for their queen. For the woman who had dared to defy tradition for the sake of her heart, as the first clash of metal rang through the air, Alex and Ethan stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. The battle was fierce, but Alex felt a sense of peace amidst the chaos. She had chosen this path, and she would fight for it with every ounce of her strength. On the other side, Rygar's forces were equally determined. The king had led his soldiers into battle with the same ruthless efficiency that had made him feared across the galaxy. But as the battle raged on, he began to notice a shift. His soldiers, though skilled and powerful, seemed to be hesitating. They were not as eager to fight as they once were. The realization hit him hard. Many of them were no longer loyal to him. In the heart of the battle, Rygar came face to face with Alex. Their eyes met across the blood-stained battlefield, and for a brief moment the chaos around them seemed to vanish. Alex's heart ached as she saw the pain in Rygar's eyes. He was still the man she had once loved, the man who had stood by her side for so many years. But now they were enemies. "Why, Alex?" Rygar shouted, his voice filled with anguish. "Why have you chosen him over me, over everything we built together?" Alex stood tall, her sword in hand, her gaze unyielding. "I did not choose him, Rygar," she said calmly. "I chose my heart, chose the future of our people. I cannot stand by and watch as our empire falls into tyranny." Rygar's face twisted with fury. "You will regret this, Alex. I will not let you destroy everything." Alex's eyes softened. "It is not destruction, Rygar. It is change. Change for the better, and I will not let fear stop me." With that, Alex turned and led her soldiers forward, determined to see her decision through, no matter the cost. The battle raged on, but in Alex's heart there was no doubt. She had chosen her path, and she would see it through to the end. The battle between Alex's loyalists and King Rygar's forces raged on for hours. Sounds of clashing weapons, the cries of soldiers, and the roar of war echoed throughout the Zimar capital. The once pristine streets were now stained with blood, and the palace, a symbol of power and unity, had become a battlefield. But amidst the chaos, something remarkable was happening. Alex stood at the front of her forces, her heart steady, and her resolve stronger than ever. She could hear the shouts of her soldiers behind her, their voices filled with determination. As they fought to defend their queen, with every swing of her sword, Alex felt the weight of her decision lift, replaced by the undeniable feeling that she was fighting for something greater, something that would change the course of history. Beside her, Ethan fought valiantly, his presence a constant source of strength. Though he was human and far less experienced in battle than the Zimar soldiers, his courage was unmatched. He moved with precision, his eyes locked on Alex as he followed her lead. Each swing of his blade a testament to his loyalty. As the battle wore on, it became clear that Rygar's forces were beginning to lose ground. His soldiers, though fierce, were demoralized by the knowledge that many of their comrades had already switched sides, pledging their loyalty to Alex and the future she represented. It was no longer just a battle for the throne. It was a battle for the soul of the Zimar Empire. Alex's eyes scanned the battlefield, and she saw Rygar himself in the distance, leading the final charge. His face was twisted with anger, his eyes burning with betrayal. He had always prided himself on his strength, on his unyielding rule, but now he was losing everything. Alex could feel the weight of their past together. Rygar had once been her partner, the one who had helped build the empire. But now, he had become a symbol of everything she had chosen to leave behind. The love they had shared had turned to ashes, and Alex knew that the time for regret was over. She turned to Ethan, her gaze meeting his with an unspoken understanding. "We finished this together," she said, her voice strong. Ethan nodded, his expression filled with determination. Together. With that, they moved forward, cutting through the battlefield, their goal clear. They would not let Rygar's tyranny stand any longer. The Zimar people had suffered under his rule long enough, and now it was time for change. As they approached Rygar's position, Alex saw the fear in his eyes. He had always been a proud man, but now he was backed into a corner. He had no choice but to face the consequences of his actions. "Alex?" Rygar shouted, his voice filled with desperation. "This is madness. You are throwing away everything we built together. You cannot do this." Alex stood tall, her sword raised high as she faced him. "No, Rygar. You are the one who has thrown everything away. You were too blinded by power to see what was truly important. I have seen it now. I choose the future of our people, and I choose love." Rygar's face twisted in anger. "Do would destroy everything for a human? A weak, insignificant human?" His voice rose with each word, but Alex's expression remained calm. "I would destroy nothing." "Rygar," she said, her voice steady. "I would build something new, something better." Ethan stepped forward, standing beside Alex. "It's over, Rygar," he said, his voice firm. "You've lost. The people have chosen a different path, and there's no going back." Rygar's eyes flickered with rage, but there was something else there, to fear. He knew the battle was lost, and with it, his empire. His dream of ruling with an iron fist had come to an end, and there was nothing left for him but the consequences of his choices. Alex lowered her sword slightly, her gaze softening, voice filled with a quiet strength. "You can walk away, Rygar. You can leave and live your life in peace. But if you choose to fight, there will be no mercy." Rygar's breath came in ragged gasps as he looked between Alex and Ethan. For a moment, it seemed as if he might listen, as if he might walk away and accept the loss of his empire. But then the fire in his eyes returned. He was too proud to let go, too stubborn to accept defeat. "No," Rygar spat. "I will not bow to you, Alex. I will not let you destroy everything I have worked for." With a roar, Rygar charged forward, his sword raised. But before he could reach them, a group of Zimar soldiers, those who had chosen to fight for Alex, surrounded him, their weapons raised in unison. "Rygar, it's over," one of the soldiers said, his voice firm. "Surrender." Rygar hesitated for a moment, his chest heaving with rage. But then, seeing the overwhelming force before him, he slowly lowered his weapon. The fight had left him. Alex's gaze softened as she watched the man who had once been her partner in ruling. She knew this was the end for Rygar, but she could not bring herself to feel joy in his defeat. She had never wanted it to come to this. But now she had made her choice, and she would stand by it. "Go, Rygar," Alex said, her voice gentle but firm. "Leave the Empire and live the rest of your days in peace. It's the only mercy I can offer." Rygar looked at her one last Time, his face twisted in defeat before he turned and walked away, his back to the future of the Zemar Empire as the last of Rhaegar's forces surrendered. Alex looked around at her soldiers, the people who had chosen to stand by her. They had won, and with this victory came a new beginning. A beginning that was no longer defined by fear and power, but by love and hope for the future. She turned to Ethan, her heart swelling with gratitude and love. "We did it," she said softly. Ethan smiled, his eyes filled with pride. Together, looked out at the horizon, the sun rising over the battlefield. The Zemar Empire would change, but it would change for the better. Alex had made her choice, and she had fought for it. And now she was ready to build a future where love and unity would guide the way.